Basketball Manitoba podcast, we have Kelli Sinnock. She is a graduate of Fort Richmond Collegiate and has been coaching basketball for over 20 years, coaching basketball camps, community club, junior high, high school, and provincial teams. She's been the Varsity Girls Basketball Coach at Sanford Collegiate since 2008 and is deeply involved in developing grassroots basketball in rural Manitoba. Throughout her coaching career, Kelli has been involved in a wide range of programs such as the Junior Bisons, junior high teams, Legion athletic camps, and the Manitoba Provincial Team. She founded the Mini and Junior Sabres program, as well as playing a key role in the creation of the TAP South program. She was named Basketball Manitoba AAA Coach of the Year and Grey Cup Legacy Female High School Coach of the Year in 2024. Currently, she's an assistant coach with the Manitoba Provincial Team at the 17U female program. She's preparing for the 2025 Canada Games in St. John's, Newfoundland. Kelli, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh no, it's been super good. I'm really excited because I actually want to ask you about the provincial team because off air you said, I won't bore everyone with this, but we had some schedule changes, and then I asked you, what's going on? You're like, a lot's going on. I got the provincial team tryouts this weekend, so I was like, well, great. I would love to hear about that. Is this the second year of are they still doing the 2-year kind of commitment things? Is this your second year doing it?
Yeah, this is our second year. So
Okay.
normally it's a 1-year term, but with the Canada Games last year when we applied, it was for the 2-year commitment. So it was great to have that opportunity last year, and we were in Newfoundland last year too. So to see all the facilities and kind of get the lay of the land out there, and then work with the selection last year and going through all that process. And it was nice to kind of know that last year was year 1 and we're moving into year 2 this year. So
Yeah, nice. Have you ever coached at a Canada Games or been to a Canada Games?
no, I haven't.
Nice,
No. So
nice. It's
super
gonna be
excited.
fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. So then, who's the guy? Because you're an assistant. What's the coaching staff made up of? Who's there?
So Ashley Hoytink is our
Mm-hmm.
head coach, and then Autumn Agar is our manager.
Nice,
So it's the three of us for the 17U girls side, and we all worked together last year. So I know that we're really excited to build on what we started last year, and we had a great experience and definitely learned lots. So definitely we are excited to kind of move into this year's group, and we've done lots of planning and things, watched lots of games this year.
I'm sure.
Which is awesome to kind of see the kids do their thing in both club and high school.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then how many again, I don't know if you have the numbers yet. Have you been given the numbers? How many people are going to be at tryouts this year? Do you know?
We're just kind of briefly looking right now. It looks like we're close to 50
Okay.
right now for 17U girls.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so many programs happening right now with club basketball, and then this Prairie Elite League that has kind of taken off this year. So we hope that a lot of kids still want to, commit their summers or at least try. But definitely, even with Manitoba Games last year, you can definitely tell some kids have played a lot and maybe are looking for a break, but we're hoping it's good turnout. So
yeah. Well, how many did you have last year? What was the child size? Was it about the same?
We were around 50, 55
Okay.
last year. So I'm thinking it'll be the same. Like Canada Games is one of those things, like you basically, it's like a lottery. You have to be born in the right years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that, kids see this as an opportunity. Like this is one you're not going to get again. Even from a coach standpoint, I was like, this is an opportunity you may not get again. So you definitely want to take advantage of that, at least try. So.
Yeah, 100%. I'm grateful to say that I've been to a Canada Games, and man, was it like a special experience. It was so cool. It was like, this is awesome. Yeah. It's a multi-sport, and yeah, it's really, really cool. What are you looking forward to the most? What are you excited for?
I'm just looking forward to like going back and competing at that level. It was neat to see last year, like the level of competition in other provinces. And, we had, last year, our team was made up of probably half and half. So half grade 10s, half grade 11s. So hopefully some of those kids want to try out again and make our squad and see what they've learned from last year and how they've progressed. And it's just we were in the power pool last year, so it was cool to see like we were with the top dogs and we competed pretty well, I thought. This year our pool will look a little bit different, but it'll be interesting to see, how does it look being in a different pool? You might gain a little bit more success early on, and how does your team kind of mesh with that? Nationals is it's like a marathon, so it's interesting to see how the kids adapt to that. We go to Newfoundland and you're like a 2.5 hour time change ahead. So we found that really interesting last year. Like we had one game that was like 9 a.m. and we're playing BC. So it's like middle of the night for them. And we're like 6 a.m. and, it takes a few days to get adjusted. So it will be interesting to see how we adapt to all those things this year. And yeah, I just love the level of competition, and everyone's excited, and everyone is, every athlete you have is at a high level, which is awesome too. So,
yeah, for sure. It's exciting. It really is. And it is cool that you kind of had you were already there for nationals last year. And so now this is obviously going to be a bigger scope and a lot more people there and logistics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's cool. And then like you said, I'm sure there's going to be some of the same players that make the squad this year. And so there's some carryover. So it's exciting. Same coaching staff, so yeah, no, really, it's really exciting.
It'll be interesting to see us carry over some of our concepts and things like that into this year. And I think as a coaching staff last year, we meshed really well, and I learned tons from Ashley and just working with the kids. So I'm super excited to kind of get back at that. It always seems like when you end it, like last summer, it felt like, oh, it's so far away, and like we're already here again. So it'll be super fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's exciting. Well, I mean, on that note, I mean, that's what's happening, as you said, this weekend. So it's, what are we, Thursday today? So are they on Saturday?
Yeah. Saturday
and Sunday. Okay. Are you doing one round, 2 rounds? Or is that just depending on how many people show up, or what decisions you have?
Yeah, exactly. Like our practices will start next week, but usually we take a little bit extra time with the short list kids and move into that. But yeah, we'll see how everything goes and what kind of decisions we can come up with this weekend once we see all the kids. So yeah.
Nice. Exciting times.
Yes,
Well, on that note, I want to take it way back. I want to talk about how do we even get here? Well, you're coaching the provincial team. You're talking about going to Canada Games. I asked you off. So it's so interesting as I interview so many people. I know what I know about them and nothing else, of course, right? And I think that's the case with a lot of people. I was interviewing Marlon Krause, and I said, you know what, Marlon, I don't know anything about your playing career. I don't even know if you played. I know you did, but like, I just know you as this guy, I also remember when I first met, Ross Wedlake. He was officiating, and I was like, who's this official? And someone said, oh, that's that's Adam's uncle. Never mind learning later that Ross is an absolute legend in his own right. I have no idea who this guy is. So anyways, I just say all that to say, I asked you off air. I said, hey, like, where'd you graduate? Like, did you play at all? And you kind of you started telling me of the whole story. So I know you said you graduated from FRC. But you were kind of telling me how, like, you started playing basketball. It just never worked out to you actually playing.
Yeah. So I, like, growing up, like young kid, like there wasn't really any like community club basketball or anything back when I was a kid. So you really got introduced to basketball in about grade 7. So I'd always played tons of soccer growing up. And then in that kind of era, 1995-6, indoor soccer started happening. So I started doing a lot of that. So got into like junior high at Acadia and got into like morning league and some junior high basketball through 7 to 9. And obviously back then, like, it's not like it is now where you have all these clubs and all these things and all these opportunities. So like, I just tried and played and had fun and enjoyed it, and was super excited to go into high school. In the like fall of going into grade 10, I was starting to get more competitive with soccer, and we always have our playoffs in the fall. So I had suffered an MCL injury at that time. So also moving into high school, like back then it was grade 10 to 12. So academics were obviously very important to my parents. So they were really pushing me with that. And I was definitely struggling in math when I got into grade 10. So at the point of kind of dealing with the injury and trying to rehab that, my dad was pretty strict on like, you got to make a choice here. So it sucked because I was like, oh, I don't really get the opportunity to try. But I had a super big influence in Cheryl McComb, and I got into leadership class at Fort Richmond. And she said to me, okay, well, if this isn't an option, why don't you, start volunteering and getting into some coaching. They need some morning league helpers, and I was a part of that. So I was on board and excited to do that. Jody Sampson at Acadia was a big influence on me too, because she was a big influence when I was a kid there, and then had like a huge sports council program. So I'd always kind of done a little bit of that. So very young, I started like what you would call coaching, I guess, helping out, volunteering, learning how all those things worked. And then through that, as I got older, I got into some soccer coaching as well. What really kind of pushed me with basketball was I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I really had in my head, I'm like, if I keep coaching soccer, which I definitely knew the most about, I'm like, can I get a job through coaching soccer? Like, who's going to hire me to coach soccer? Because it's not really a school sport. Like, kind of is like, I played at Fort Richmond, but it's such a small season. Same thing now and when doing my phys ed stuff here, and soccer is like a 1-month season. So I was like, I really want to start learning how to coach basketball and getting good at it and all those things. And I really liked it. So, and like through and through it all, like I had talked to you about this before, like I was the kid that graduated with lots of most improved stuff, from athletic stuff to academics. I definitely learned in my grade 10 to 12 from a lot of great role models, like Cheryl being one of them. Jody Sampson was a really good one. Keith Redfern, he was a great phys ed guy at Fort Richmond. They really brought me up to learn how to have a work ethic. My dad was a huge part of that too. And as much as I hated being told, no, you can't do certain things, I definitely credit all those, those lessons to where I am today. And I think it's really pushed me, to a lot of the programs that I run. And what I do at Sanford is probably the closest to what I experienced in as a kid, because everybody out here, there's so many multi-sport athletes, and it's not soccer, but hockey would trump everything in this town. So I really feel like now when I look at, developing programs and kids and all these things, I really try to find, the strength of every kid. And I felt like Cheryl was a great person who did that for me. She found, okay, if you can't do this, why don't you do this? And she really brought that leader out in me. And that was something, like, I graduated with a high standing in leadership, and it took me to like getting jobs at Mini U and kind of getting into those types of opportunities, and really getting me outside of my comfort zone and all of those kinds of things, and kind of opening me up into lots of coaching opportunities and lots of like leadership things, leading me to being a teacher too. So
yeah, no, it's really cool. Yeah, I remember with Mini U, I was, I was trying to think when we first had our first encounter. It definitely was Mini U, because I'm 2001, and then I remember you were a prominent, you had a prominent position there, like you were doing a lot with Mini U, and it's interesting because you said, what are we, like 16 in the 10th grade, something like that, 15, 16? So
15,
15, yeah. Like, so you were doing, coaching of leadership, guiding people younger than you, or at quite a young age. That's, it's crazy. And it's an interesting thought experiment to think, well, if you ended up just playing, like, say, basketball and soccer, and you're doing all this stuff, would you even be coaching basketball right now?
I know.
Would you, it would have been a whole different life path, but you end up doing this, and now you're like, you're going to the Canada Games as a provincial basketball coach. So it's kind of, it's interesting when we reflect back on these moments in our life, hey, of like the paths that they could have taken us.
Totally. And like, like athletically, I think my main things was always going in and trying as hard as I could. I was definitely that kid though, like we had some like great soccer teams, and I was the kid that was like, oh, I'm not that good. Put this other kid in because like I want to win. And I definitely feel like now too, when I look at values of my teams and things that standards I set, I really try to focus on, you know, what's best for the team. How can we put ourselves aside? All those things. In 2008, 2009, I coached the 15U provincial team with Suki Chuan. She lives in BC now, but she was a great role model. Like we were very young then when we were doing this team, but she was very good at taking your 12 superstars and making them into a team. And I learned a lot about that and how to make, you know, kids appreciate each other, appreciate their strengths. And I definitely think those experiences, I look back then and I look now and I'm like, we didn't really know what we were doing, or at least I didn't.
Yeah.
Because you're so young and you're trying to figure it all out. But we really like bound together and figured out how to, you know, use these experiences for us as young coaches. And those definitely helped me. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to come back around, you know, in this era of basketball, because it's very different now. But it's definitely given me some different perspectives, which has been great too. So.
Yeah. Shout out to Suki. Yeah. Living in BC now. No, yeah, for sure. She was all about like bringing people together and like doing things as a group. She's great at that. So shout out.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, that was her spouse, her superpower. It is her superpower. Question. So, okay. So you mentioned Suki and again, like, you know, we're kind of jumping all over the place. You can talk about now when I ask you this question. It doesn't have to be back then, but who are some of the, you know, you mentioned some of the people when you were younger who kind of got you into the, hey, you should be doing this. And then you started mentoring and guiding people. But, you know, that was a long time ago. It's 2025 now, right? You and I both graduated at the turn of, you know, the 2000s, long time ago. So now maybe in your entire coaching journey, who are some of the mentors who've helped shape your development as a coach kind of through your journey up to now?
Yeah. Well,
or sorry, or peers, you know what I mean? They don't always have to be mentors,
definitely.
right? Like Suki, you mentioned, hey, she taught me something, right? So
yes.
yeah.
I don't even know what year it was, but when I was in university, I had coached a kind of stint of junior Bisons, and I actually worked with Michelle Sung and Sarah Lundgren. So they were great people that kind of, we worked together. I learned lots from them. They had great playing careers, all those kinds of things. And then kind of full circle, like a few years ago, it must have been, 3 summers ago, Megan Noonan, who actually I coached her when she was like 15U. She actually came back and helped me when I started the TAP program. Her and Ashley were my two helpers because Ashley was out in Morden and Megan was just kind of graduating from UW, and she came out and helped me with our like very first rural TAP program. So that would have been the last Canada Games when they were doing tryouts. So she had invited me to come to tryouts and be a helper coach. So Eric Sung had asked me, you know, he had offered, hey, if you want to come out and help at any point, like you're welcome to when they started practices. It must have been the year after when he had that really great group with Izzy Foost and all of them. So it just happened to be a summer where I didn't have a lot going on. So I was like, okay, I was like, how much help do you want? I'm like, I don't want to be a distraction, whatever. But I was like, I would come out to any practices because I really wanted to learn. And he obviously is a coach who right now has had a lot of success and what I would say is the newer generation of basketball. So I kind of wanted to see, you know, how things were going. And I went out every day and just hung out and helped out with drills and whatever. And I learned so much. And he has been a huge support for me for sure. And I've learned a ton from him. He was working with Ashley at the time. So, and her and I had worked together a bit before. So that connection kind of kept going, which was great. And then it's been a great time because I've had a very keen and successful group at Sanford. So a lot of the things I've been able to learn through that, I've been able to bring into my school stuff, plus my like kind of club spring rural tap stuff. my program's definitely evolved and had more kids. So he's been a great support with all of those things. I had a great parent help me out this year. Usually, like in Sanford, you're the lone wolf in terms of rural sports are definitely a different animal, like lots of late nights, lots of bus trips. It's crazy sometimes how it can be. So I'm often on my own, or I've had some great former students come back, but I had Neil McKinley help me out this year. He's a parent of one of our athletes, and he was a great support as well. And it was nice to have a parent in your corner too. And he's very excited and passionate about basketball. So it was great to have someone to be able to go back and forth with. Christy Steves, who's in Stonewall, she's been there for a long time. She does the East targeted athlete programs.
Okay.
And then Matt McLeod in Brandon, he's done a lot of stuff with Carrie Lasuk out there. He runs the West part of the targeted athlete program. So those two have been big advocates for rural basketball, and they've been two very big, important people in my life in terms of helping kind of get more kids involved in basketball out in these rural areas. It's tough in some of them right now because club volleyball seems to be taken over in some places.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's all sorts of things. I seem to be mostly, it's mostly hockey here, which hockey and basketball, the schedules seem to work until we get to playoffs. Then it becomes a little trickier because they're almost the exact same time. But I haven't had the volleyball takeover yet, which is good. I think we're close enough to the city that the kids will go there. But if it happens in a small town, like it's starting to happen out in that Interlake area, it can really take over stuff. So there's definitely been ebbs and flows in those areas. So
those are those whole battles of rural basketball. And I've obviously you mentioned Ashley and Sarah Gillis. I had her on the podcast as well. And people out in Brandon. And Brandon's a little bigger, it's a city, but nonetheless, like the challenge that people face outside of Winnipeg, maybe is a good way to put it, is just like it's much different. And like you said, you're like, oh, I had a parent help out. Oh man, it was so nice. Like whereas you see high school, some of them in the city, and there's like 5 coaches. But it's just there's more people there, and there's lots of reasons for that. But there's a clear difference when you're rural versus city.
Definitely. Sarah was, I would give her a lot of credit for my success too. When I was coaching against her, it was probably in like 2009. We played a game, like a third place game at provincials, and then she came and talked to me after, and she just was like, "You're a great coach. She wanted me to come out to the Legion camp. So I went out to Legion camp. I didn't really know what it was all about and everything, but she was a really big advocate for me. Randy Cassano has obviously been huge too. My very first year teaching, I was teaching at General Bing in Winnipeg, grade K to 9 phys ed, and then they needed a coach at Oak Park, a JV coach. So I coached General Bing and Oak Park that same year. And it was a lot, but it was I made some great contacts through it. That's actually how Suki and I ended up coaching together, because I coached Alyssa Cox, and she had played junior Westman for Suki, and Suki wanted to apply, and you're supposed to apply as a team, and she suggested it, so we went together, and it was a great fit. So it worked out well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, you mentioned a whole bunch of people in there. You got, so we got, but I mean, that's important because, and I always highlight this, whenever I talk to someone, because, it's just a community thing, right? And I just love the fact that, people are like supporting each other and they look out for each other. And I don't know, I've heard in other sports, it's a little bit more hostile than it is in basketball. I heard that when it comes to especially collegiate, like high school and stuff like that, like we're pretty good. You find like some rare things, but I've heard some bad stuff in other sports. We don't have to talk about that now, but that's the thing I love about our community. It's like people really will like lend a hand and help bring people up, and other coaches and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see. So you've been at have you been at Sanford since 2008?
I've been here. This will be this fall will be 18 years here. So this is
Yeah.
my 17th year. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
I don't know if I knew exactly where I was even going when I interviewed here. I like knew I was getting on the highway, and when
Yeah.
you grow up in Fort Richmond, you stay in your little bubble and you walk everywhere and take the bus.
Yeah.
And then this job opportunity came, and I was like, okay, I had some friends who had student taught out here and heard it was a great place. So yeah, I've loved it here. The community's great, and yeah, I've been here for a long time now. So yeah.
Yeah. So I see you in the office and it looks like a phys ed office. Am I right? Or am I
Yeah.
completely wrong? Yeah. Okay. I was like,
No,
that doesn't
yeah,
look like a classroom. It looks like a phys ed office.
yeah.
So you just full-time phys ed?
Yeah, I am full-time phys ed. I'm
Yeah.
moving into quarter-time vice principal next year. So
Oh,
I'm
okay. Okay.
still gonna be phys ed, but I am moving into a little bit of admin. So
Okay.
I'm excited for that new challenge, and
Yeah. You're
yeah,
still gonna coach though.
I am. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. We're
That
not
was
breaking.
a
You're not
negotiable
gonna
for
get
me.
bad
Yeah,
news over
yeah.
this
No,
podcast. I'm
no.
stepping away. That's good. That's good. So then what are some, like, I mean, you mentioned the community being special. I mean, almost 18 years, you said, or it's been 18 years. What are some of the maybe proudest moments or accomplishments with the team, or just, I don't know, even at the school, your time there, the community? What really stands out?
Yeah. Lots of things stand out. Like we have a pretty competitive zone. Uh, Definitely things have changed over the years. Like when
Mm,
I first got here, we were close to 400 students. This year we clocked in at 295. So we're not actually
okay.
3A. We've been 3A. We've probably been under 300 for about like 8 years, but it's always like right on that cusp. So it's like, oh, do we go down to double A? Do we go up to triple? Eventually, we're going to be
Yeah.
triple. And I like the 3A competition. And since it's probably been at least 5 years now, but the 3A number has gone from 300 to 500. It's now 300 to 650. So we are
Oh,
competing
wow.
against very large schools, but we've been very competitive, especially I'd say over the last 5 years.
Hmm.
We made it to the provincial final the last 2 years. Um, and I made it one other time in 0809. When I had some very gifted athletes then too. Probably the craziest thing in the last 2 years with something I'm very proud of the kids with, like we have had a very high level of female athletes in our school. And the last 2 years, our girls hockey team made it to the Winnipeg I think it's the Free Press Division, like championship final series. So the crazy part has been it's been the exact same week as their basketball provincials. So
No
my
way.
kids have been had six girls this year that played high school hockey and basketball, and with a couple starters in that group. So on our provincials this year, we had a game the day of our semifinal. We had a close game with Westwood. I came down to like the wire. We end up winning that game, moving into the provincial finals the next day. They had to go from John Taylor to Seven Oaks Arena to play game 3,
No
win the hockey
way.
championship, and then the next like day we were playing in the finals. So that is definitely not the reason why, in my opinion, that we lost the game, but it's like crazy. Like my kids are like as close to being professional athletes as you could possibly
That's
get
crazy.
in terms of like that work ethic and like just what they sacrifice, like going from hockey ranks back to basketball practice. And like we've definitely leveled up in the last few years because we're practicing almost every day to try to get there. And we've had some very, gifted athletes and that have lots of potential and really want to pursue basketball. But it's the same thing, like hockey's been a part of their life their whole lives. So it's something I'm very proud of that we have these kinds of athletes. It's definitely created some challenges, but I
Yeah.
felt like this year I was like more at peace with it all. Like it's hard to win a championship. You figure out how hard it is. So when,
Yeah.
these teams win two in a row, even it's like, it's amazing to me. You definitely have more of an appreciation for what it takes and all the little things that go into it. And every team has their stories and their challenges, right? So not a lot of people know that, my kids have had, these types of things, but it's the neat thing about being a rural school, but your athletes are your athletes. They're doing everything pretty
Yeah.
much. So yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
Yeah.
you're telling me that when you were playing in the provincial final, this is this year or the year before?
This was this
20,
year. Yeah,
oh,
this was this year.
25.
The
Yeah.
year before it was the same scenario, but their hockey playoffs, their final series, they had game one the day of our quarterfinals, so it wasn't quite as bad. And then they finished it off the week after. This year it was like all the exact same week.
That's
So
crazy. So they like
yeah,
literally go from playing to playing, like
yeah,
of a
yeah.
hockey game. So it was like basketball, hockey, same day, then
Basketball,
go.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
That's tough. And like these are not both basketball and hockey are not they're not easy sports to play.
No, no.
They're not like, oh, I rest a lot. Like you're
Yeah,
pushing, you're working hard. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. But then like that's what you said. Like I've heard this from other people in rural schools. Like the athletes play multiple sports because
Yes.
that's just what is done, like
Yeah.
it's not it's, I mean, not that everyone does, but you're going to get tons of athletes that are playing, like you said, in your case, maybe volleyball, basketball and hockey, like in the
Yeah.
same season, in the same year. It's
Yeah.
nuts. Yeah.
Definitely. But I'm definitely proud of the program that I've built over the years, and there's every kid that has come through it, all the parents, all the support, um, different teachers in our building, our varsity boys basketball coach. He's been here the whole time that I have, and he started out as a parent volunteer. He now is works in the maintenance department of our school division and in our school, and he's been a huge part of our program and building up basketball and getting kids to
Mm.
enjoy it. I feel like him and I both, like, we early on, I feel like it's better now, but like you've definitely were the people pulling kids out of the hallway, like, oh, you're tall, you can play
Yeah,
basketball,
you were doing
you
that thing.
look athletic,
Yeah.
yeah, like why don't you try? And like
Oh,
so I feel like that's where it started, and we're way beyond that now. But
yeah.
doing little things like mini Sabres, I have the kids, the current high school kids help coach it, so it's a little bit of give back. It gets them started in coaching, and I think it's really created a community of basketball in our town, which, like I said, like lots of hockey out here, which is great too. But we just really try to make it something that hopefully everyone feels like they can be a part of. So
Yeah, for sure. More opportunities and stuff like that. It's
yeah,
interesting. You've the amount of people that no, there's not that many, but there's definitely been a few people who have interviewed who that was the case. That's how they got into basketball. Literally, it's
yeah,
like the coach is like, "Hey, you ever think about playing basketball?" And they're just like, "No." And now they're like, they had this whole like career, and it was literally because that one person was like, "Hey, come play, like, come check this
yeah,
out," or like in your case, "Hey, why don't you go do this leadership thing?"
yeah,
So it's like you play such an important role in the community as I think shout out to Chino. He always uses this word like champion. I'm like, you're a
yeah,
champion, you're starting things, you're making things happen, and you're helping guide people, and you're a champion for basketball in the community, right? And you mentioned the
yeah.
junior Sabres. What was I mean, the what was the big thing that kind of maybe inspired you to do that? I mean, because you said 2008, obviously you're new. That was 2014. I think you started that, and now it's we're over 10 years. What was the big driving force for you to start that program?
Yeah, I actually had a coworker, her daughter, or like they lived in St. James, and it was actually Sarah Lundgren was doing
Hmm.
like mini warriors in at
Yeah,
Westwood, and her
yeah.
daughter went into it, and she said to me, she's like, "This might be a good idea for like you to try or whatever." So I was like, "Okay." I was
Uh,
like, and then I had we always have kids doing leadership stuff that they have to do a project. So I had a couple girls on my team, like, we don't know what to do for our project. So I was like, all right, let's try
mm,
this year. So I keep it very short. We do it 4 weeks, like one session a week in April. And it's
mhm.
basically like the in between hockey and like softball and soccer and stuff starting.
Yeah.
So we've done it for young kids. But yeah, every year we've had 50 plus kids in our community. People like it because there's not a lot of things in that actually run out of Sanford. So if you live in Sanford, you got to go
Uh,
to the RM of McDonald, and like you might be in Oak Bluff or LaSalle. So you
mhm,
kind of you get a lot of town kids coming to it, which is good. And then LaSalle's a big community as well now, so we get some of those kids. But our young people that are playing basketball here really help make that program run successfully and give
mhm.
them that little carrot of like, okay, it's my turn to give back now. And like, definitely some of them have gone into coaching because of it. So it's kind of my, kind of how I got started too.
Mhm.
So I like that we've been able to keep it going um, and have that opportunity for kids of all ages to find some success. So
Yeah, I love that. I think like the thing that obviously stands out in everything you do, it's very much involved in the word leadership has come up quite a few times,
yes, yeah.
leadership. So what is, again, this could be a whole conversation in itself, but what does leadership like mean to you and why is it important?
Yeah, I think especially as a female too, it's trying to figure out how to use your voice, how to inspire people, how to motivate them, um, how to help people achieve results that they don't even think are possible. I
Mm,
think back to myself too. It's like, I don't think I really thought, like, you know, back when I was 15 that like I could be where I am now. There's no way I would have thought that. I think even in my coaching career, or like as a teacher, I look at some of the things I've achieved or some of these, you know, awards and accolades that I've received, and you always still feel like, wow, why am I getting this, or why do I
mhm,
deserve this over all these other people that do all these things? So I think leadership to me is like the endless possibilities. You are able to really like, find something out there that you might be able to help someone with that you don't even know you're doing necessarily. And I think with young people and young kids and the era we're kind of in today in our society, um, it's pretty easy to quit things if you want to now.
mm,
So I feel like it's really important to, show our young people, if you work hard, you have no idea what you could accomplish. And I
mhm,
think those are huge values for me growing up. And even like, I'll go back to like math. Like, I never thought I was good at math and never wanted to be good at math really, but you work hard and you figure it out. And I had some great teachers along the way that really inspired me. Even if it wasn't my favorite thing, I figured out how to do it. So I think
mm,
those are kind of big things for me. Even this year, like when I was looking at getting into educational leadership, so much of my coaching, I think, has paved my way for that too. And really looking, you brought up Mini U. When I was at Mini U, I was a supervisor there, and that was a great experience because um, you had to figure out how to like, you know, almost like be an adult, and you're working with people of the same age as you, some even older than you, and you're trying to figure out how to lead them, how to guide them, how to support them while
mhm,
you're trying to figure out all this stuff too. So all those experiences, I think, have really kind of helped me figure out who I am as a leader. And like the other piece that I love about all these opportunities is I can constantly learn. And that's the like I learn something every time I step in that gym. And I think with me coaching a lot on my own over my years, that's why I loved going into that gym when Eric invited me to just, come
mm.
hang out and see how things were going. Working with Ashley and Autumn, I've learned so much from them. Working with Matt and Christy with the rural stuff, seeing how everybody inspires our athletes. It doesn't matter if you're in your first year of coaching or you're 35th, you can always learn something. So,
Yeah. There's so much stuff that you said there that is so important. The big one that stands out to me, and it's the thing that, like you said, I would have never thought I could, be doing this, that, or the other is like the person who's the leader that has the level of belief that the person who they believe in like doesn't even realize is there. Like they have no idea. They can't even fathom it. But then that person who's the leader, like, no, no, you can do that.
yeah.
You can do that, right? And they're like, really? And you're like, yeah. And that's like that's such a powerful moment for the kids or the people who are being led
Yeah.
is, you are kind of like pointing them in a direction. You're like, just go that way.
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
lot of times it's
exactly.
like you're leading by like just pointing them in the right direction. You're like, hey, come over
Yes.
here. And then at some point they'll like go off on their own. But I think, and then the other thing that really stood out, which is so cool to hear you say is just like the continual, just constantly learning, right? Being open to learn and being able to apply those things as you kind of move forward through your journey, right? Because like you're always going to be, if you're always learning, it's just like a lifelong thing, right? And
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
super cool. And then you obviously, we talked about the junior Sabres, but you also in the intro, I mentioned that you were a big part of the TAP South program, and you brought it up as well, mentioning the other regions. What
Yeah.
was you said you were big on that. I know that's a Basketball Manitoba thing. What was what's the origin story of that? Is that something that you went and said, hey, or did they say, hey, we're looking for someone? Like, how did that all come together?
Yeah, so myself, Christy, and Matt, we were like, he'd coached at Neelan for quite a few years. She was coaching in Stonewall, and then I was here in Sanford, obviously. And um, I think a big thing was COVID came and it paused
Mm,
everything. And I had a really good player at that time, Callie Yates, who's playing in Brandon now.
hmm.
And then that year kind of stopped, ended. She didn't get a grade 12 season. Um, and then I started to think about the fact that we're already a little behind in the rural areas in terms of basketball. And I often have these great athletes. Like we often have really good
Mm,
athletes. A lot of them are just kind of starting to get into basketball in grade 9 for some of them. So it was kind of like, we have this provincial team and we have these programs, but often now with the club system and everything else, unless you're really keen and you're driving into the city all the time, there's quite a big gap. So it was
hmm.
one of those pieces where it was like, how can we, you know, bridge the gap a little bit from the rural to the city and at least have some of these kids comfortable to even go to like a tryout, even just try the
Yeah.
tryout. So when COVID came, it stopped basketball for a bit. And for me, I really missed coaching. Teaching phys ed through a computer was awful. So all the things that kind of fill up my cup were gone for me. So it gave me some time to think about some of these things. And I all three of us had talked a lot about thinking this might be a good idea. They were interested in getting involved too. I had a good relationship with Basketball Manitoba and Adam. So I kind of went to them with the idea. We basically made a proposal, and then he took it to the board and it got approved. And then we got going um, in the fall of 2021. So then it was trying to get some support coaches. So I had Megan and I had Ashley, and then they
Hmm.
had their people. There was lots of kids interested in basketball in Brandon, and that being a city, it was a little easier to get some registrations. And then Adam thought it was great because Manitoba Games was coming, so people were going to be sticking in those regions.
Hmm.
So when I started in 2021, I think we had 14 athletes. And then this year was I think our fourth season doing it. And now I'm up to 2 age groups. So I had a full 14U group, like grades 6 to 8. And I think I was at 22 kids. And then I had 18 at the 17U.
Nice.
So our program changed a little bit this year. And then for the spring. So Matt has a club basketball program in Brandon. So I've been running kind of using his club and had my kids going to club tournaments and things like that with
Yeah.
that program for the spring. And then they've gotten some more games and things like that out of it. So that's been
Nice.
great how it's evolved. And yeah, it's just something we felt like we needed. One of my Sanford athletes made the provincial team in 20 she made the 15U group in 2 years ago, and then she was on our 17U team last year. So it's definitely helped, at least
Hmm.
created that confidence to go to those tryouts. And she went to a ID camp in Brandon. So Randy's done some of those ID camps in Brandon and Winkler. Those have definitely helped too, to get some idea of some of these rural athletes that might be out
Hmm.
there. And it's definitely, I think, made them feel more comfortable. Like, I can go and try out and do some of these things. So
Yeah. It's big. You know, it's so interesting to hear you say that. I'm like, I'm like, that wasn't a thing before, you know? It's almost
Yeah,
like it's now that it's there, you're like, of course that should be a thing, right?
yeah.
It's one of those weird things. And I guess COVID allowed that to kind of, take place and come together. But yeah, that's interesting. And it's a interesting thing because like a lot of times I've heard in the past, like Manitoba or other provinces feel left out from like say Canada basketball. They're not doing regional
Hmm.
things. And so this is an
Yeah,
extension of that. Like it's an extension of all those parts. So it's really
yeah.
cool because then it's going out even to those places. And the one thing that I think you'll be the first to say this, and other people or rural people will say this. And I've always had this kind of like sense of things. Um, we obviously know that like great hockey players have come out of like the smallest towns, right? These are some
Hmm.
like great hockey players, but there's no, and we also have seen some basketball players come out of the smallest towns. Now, again, some of
Hmm.
these people in the past would transfer over to, like they might go to the school in the city or something like that. But there's talent, and it's not a matter of that. And so, like these types of
Yes.
programs are so important because, as you said, leadership, belief, right? Knowing that these people are completely capable. It's just about like getting them kind of in that system, getting them experience.
Yeah.
So it's really
Yeah.
cool. I'm really happy to hear. And then that your group has grown as well. So now you got the
Yes.
community stuff, a little bit of intro there. You got the high level stuff in the area as well. Um, Talk to me a little bit about your time. I know you mentioned way back when with Suki coaching the U15, but now you're back doing obviously 17U. What's it like when you're stepping into like the high performance environment? Again, this is not any shade to any high school, but like when you're now every person is good, and even the person that
Hmm.
there's gonna be people that you cut that you have to because you can only have so many players that are good,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
just a different environment altogether. So what's like the biggest maybe shifts or changes that you notice when you're stepping into this like, this provincial team environment?
Yeah. I mean, the talent is there for sure. That's probably the biggest thing. When I'm starting, school stuff here, it's like you have some kids, even at the varsity level, even kids that have played on my team before, some of them won't touch a ball from now
Yeah.
till,
Yeah.
next November, December, whatever, which is fine. So you get to that level and it's like everyone's doing all the things. Like
Yes.
everybody's doing all the club, they're doing, especially now, like even a couple of my kids that are very competitive and they're very keen in basketball. They went into the city this year and did some club with Eric at Evolve, and
Oh,
that's
nice.
been great for them. But I feel like everybody's always trying to get the next step ahead so that they can try to compete. So when you get to provincial team level, I one thing I love is like the compete. So you get in that gym,
Mm,
everyone's trying to win a spot on that team, right? And show
yeah.
what they can do. I think what becomes kind of crazy and tricky is when you're selecting your team, and then even once you've had them selected, you're looking at what's everyone's like tiny superhero, what's going to separate them from
Mm,
the rest. Like this kid
yeah.
might be a great rebounder, this kid might be the best shooter, and then how do we figure out our system that's going to be the strength for our group. And it's another piece, like even just the nationals like tournament and getting into Canada games and stuff, you don't necessarily know what your opponent looks like until even like the day before sometimes. So
Yeah.
then once you get past those first initial games, so you're scouting and you're trying to figure things out, but you really have to focus more on what you're good at as a team, more than anyone else. And I feel like in high school, I think I do a decent job of like figuring out who the main players are, and especially at 3A, you might have a little less depth on teams, so you know who the big dogs are, and you kind of
Hmm.
got to figure that out, right? You have that figured out at the provincial team level. Everybody's good, and even the smallest provinces, some of them have one really great player, but then they have a bunch that are able to support
Yeah.
that player. So um I find all of that very interesting. The other thing, we try to do a lot of extra stuff with them. We do check-ins and we talk to them about kind of the whole picture of things. Most of these kids, if not all of them, are all aspiring to play basketball at a higher level at some point.
Hmm.
But it's just like I said before on like, sometimes I'm like oh, wow, why am I here? Or, why did I get to
Mm-hmm.
this? You ask kids what their strengths are even at this highest level. It is very hard for a lot of them to say. And
Yeah.
especially like, we always joke here too, like my girls had a very good season. Our boys team, not quite as strong. But I always say, if I put a boy and a girl in the room together and I said, like, what are you good at? That boy's going to tell me 3 things they're good at. And the girl's
Yeah.
going to be like, I'm not sure, even if they
Yeah.
are at the highest level. So the confidence piece, and
Mm-hmm.
I still am working on it, is such a huge thing for female athletes, female in
Mm-hmm.
sport. I think that's such a huge thing. You almost have to be overconfident to just be confident. And really trying to get them to figure out, this is my strength and this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm bringing to the team. So that self-awareness piece, I feel like we're always hardest on ourselves, and that's
Mm-hmm.
very interesting at that level because they all want to be the best they can be, but it's trying to figure out, okay, what do we all have that's a little bit different that's going to bring it to the table. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's a lot there. I mean, that's I remember doing provincial teams, and I hated selecting the team. I'll just say,
Yeah.
be straight up. That was like my
Yeah.
least favorite part because
Yeah.
there's no like perfect decision.
Nope.
And
No.
I've talked with people, some of who you've mentioned in this podcast, who they ended up cutting someone. And again, like, to be fair, like the person, maybe they needed that motivation, they got cut, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But that person ended up being super talented, or the person, hey, you're the practice player, and it turns out that like they're one of the better players, and like these
Mm-hmm.
things happen. And so like the tryout process is not like it's not a surgical process. It's very kind of
Yes.
like, you try, but
Yeah.
again, sometimes the player doesn't show as well. And it's like they're having a rough weekend. Like
Yeah.
now you're like, well, I don't know. And so, yeah, there's a lot to it. But yeah, no, I think there's, like you said, the making sure it all fits together, building a team in such a short period of time, yeah, all that stuff is super exciting, and like the provincial team experience as a whole is always really exciting. So
Mm-hmm.
that should be really, really good for the Canada Games, and yeah, I know
Yeah.
you'll enjoy it. It's really cool. Um, so we're coming up to the end here. I have a few more
Yep.
questions to ask you. So I like to ask like some general ones here, and and I asked you before. I said, if you listened to any, you're like, yes. So you should know that this one's coming. You still might not have an answer. When I ask people this, they're like, I don't know. So I'll ask you. I'll let you decide which one you want to answer. But the question is essentially, what are some of your most memorable, or your most memorable moment or moments? There's maybe more than one, or like maybe a funny story, or both if you want to tell both. But whatever kind of comes to mind first. So maybe you want to share like a memorable moment of your time coaching. It's you've been doing it for a while now. You probably have a bunch of moments that are running through your mind. What stands out to you?
Yeah. There's definitely one from like so many different moments, and I've had so many great kids um along the way. I remember my it was in 0809, so the first time is probably the first time we made it to provincials, and I had a player that she actually was from Carmen, and she played some provincial teams. She played for U of W a couple of years. Her name's Alex Warburton. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
she was very tall. She was like 6'2",
Yeah,
and she was very good.
I remember
And
Alex.
anyway, she was only in grade 10. And I remember her coming to Sanford. She's in grade 10, and they really came here for academics because she was brilliant. She graduated with so many scholarships, all these things. And then I had another kid who was quite a good athlete. And then I had some good grade 11s. Anyway, we play our first game, and it was a different tournament then. It was like 10, I think it was 10 teams instead of 8. So I think we weren't a play in. We were like the 6th seed or something. We go in, we win a game, and we make it to the semi. And I really think back then I was like, I don't know, you just win a game and you move on. I put way less pressure on myself than
Sure.
back then when I didn't know a lot and to now. So I'm like, we win the game, we go into the next one. And I remember being in the stands watching Neelan play, who they were like in the quarterfinal, and they were a really great team, and they had this huge girl. And I remember talking with like Dennis Marinelli. He was coaching St. Norbert, and they had some crazy good teams. And, you know, him and his assistant were kind of talking about how they might guard her. And I was like, okay, I'm like thinking about it, whatever, talking about fronting her, talking about having someone pin her. So I was like, okay, I'm thinking about this. And then we get matched up with them. So we were down by 11 at half, and it was such a low scoring game. And I'm like, whatever, I'm going to try this. I got this volleyball player that can jump, and I got Alex. I'm going to put the volleyball kid in front, put Alex behind, and we end up winning the game by 3. And as soon as we were done, I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And this scorekeeper comes up to me, and I have no idea what the legacy of Neelan High School is in basketball.
Yeah.
And the scorekeeper comes up to me, and he's like, it's nice to see someone else get in the finals. And I'm like, I was totally like shell shocked by the whole thing, but it was awesome. And it's definitely a strategy I've used, but it was just cool kind of hearing what other people were thinking, and then like being like, all right, like why not try something? So I always look at that now when I'm coaching, and like if I tried and it sucks, then we just try something else. But you never know what's gonna happen, and it kind of just really, that was my first experience where I was like thinking how crazy it was in high school provincials, especially at 3A. Like you got to have a good weekend, right? So now when we get, I'm full circle back at it with some really great kids and high level groups. It's as much as you want to win every time, you're like, you have to have a good weekend, and lots of things have to align for you, and there's lots of pieces that fall into place. But ultimately, you're proud of your kids' efforts all the time, and I think that's always my thing that comes back to it, is that I'm always so proud of them for what they put out on the court, how much they value each other. I've had lots of kids, more kids than you would think come out of this very small school that, try provincial team or try to go play youth sports. Like we had one go to Brandon last year, and she was a full true multi-sport athlete all the way through. So it's cool to see them trust me and believe in themselves, and ultimately get to their final, goals, and set them off to being, young adults. So.
Yeah. That's super interesting. That year, so when you beat Neelan, you made the final?
Yeah, we made the finals, and then we lost. We lost to Dennis's team. I still have not won one. I'm hoping that comes soon, but
Yeah.
But then we lost to St. Norbert. They were a very, very good team that year.
Got it. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that, but 08, 09 would have been your literal first year at the school, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your first year, like, we're off to the final. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Off to the races. Yeah. It's beginner's luck. Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. That's super cool. Okay. One last question here. I always like to end the podcast with advice. So, this is how I like to kind of frame it. You're talking to a bunch of young coaches, and you want them to, most young people aren't listening to half the things they say. Even the ones who do listen are still human. So they're going to take like a few things, and you might get lucky if they take one or two things out of there, right?
Yeah.
So we'll focus on 3. And you're talking to them, and you want them to leave, that talk with something that they can take with them. Now, these are coaches, right? These are young coaches, and they're up there, and you're like, hey, look, we have Kelli. She's, the coach for a long time, blah, blah, blah. What would you want them to, what, piece of knowledge or, protocol or belief would you want them to leave with that you think would help them in their future journey as young coaches?
I think one big thing is you're never too old to learn. So you can always learn. You're always going to figure out something new. It's important to, like, we've talked a lot about the basketball community. It's not only basketball community, important people in your life. You can always learn from those people. Have your circle of people you can trust, that will be honest with you. I think that's a huge thing. And I think probably, I don't know, a main one, and I say this to kids a lot, is invest in yourself. Like, invest in yourself to be the best you can be. Put the extra work in, watch the extra videos, talk to those people, Don't be afraid to take risks would be another big one. I think if I didn't do any of those things, I wouldn't even be close to where I am now in my career and coaching, and even personally. I think those are all very important life lessons that you can learn. But I feel like now, once it gets a little bit tough for some people, we tend to opt out. Also, I feel like the volunteer, like when you're volunteering your time, I think a lot of people think about, like, is this worth my time? Like, what am I gaining out of this? Whenever you're working with young people and coaching and doing something you enjoy, it's going to be worth it. I think that's another big, is knowing that your time is worth it and you are inspiring some young kid to be the best they can be, whether they tell you that or not. You are making an impact. So I think the impact piece is also something that is so huge. And most people that get into coaching or working with people want to make an impact. But, there's lots of ways you can impact without even seeing something specific come out of someone, that you are probably impacting their life. And that's such a huge thing. So,
yeah. No, I mean, there's a common theme there. I hear a lot of times. I ask coaches this, and you've pretty much hit on all of them. Like, continue to learn. Like you're affecting people, even if you don't realize it. In every moment, like one thing you say, whether it be on negative or positive, is going to have an impact. And you might have thought it was some small comment, and then they tell you later on that was the thing they needed to hear. Or remember when you said that thing, and you're like, no, did I say something? Yeah. Well, no, I really appreciate you taking the time. And it's if I was going to summarize your story from at least what we talked about, is obviously like leadership is a huge part of that, right? And obviously that's going to continue to be a big part of it. You brought up a few different things, but really just like continuing to learn, continuing to be a leader, and then and just being like, I love the word champion. I don't know why that word always stands out to me as an individual, right? It's like you're winning by like leading. I mean, like you're winning. You're a champion, and so it's not like this one final destination. It's like a continuous thing that you just do. You lead people. So, and that's what you are. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I wish you good luck this summer. I know you're gonna have a good time with the Canada Games.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. Okay, take care.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share this series, and reach out to us with your comments on the show. Thanks again for joining us.